Only 16% of South Africa's municipalities achieved clean audits in the latest Auditor General report. Service delivery is faltering, infrastructure is collapsing, and financial discipline is eroding. What is going wrong at the heart of local government? We now speak to Patricia Stock, CEO of the South African Institute of Chartered Accountants. Patricia, appreciate your time. Thanks so much for speaking to us. Now, let's start off with what is a clean audit? Because only 16% of municipalities have achieved those.
Good afternoon, Hugo and the viewers, and thank you so much for the opportunity to share our insights. So to your question, the clean audit is when a municipality and what we term an auditee gets outcomes of an audit whereby financial statements are audited and the audit of performance information, which is an audit of what their in this instance, municipality has planned to deliver in a year vis-a-vis what they have actually produced in a year. And then also the third element is the audit of compliance against laws and regulations that are applicable to the municipality. So a clean audit is if there are no material findings in all the three areas that the Auditor General looks at.
So that number is sitting at 84% of those municipalities who have failed to deliver a clean audit. Is a statistic high before we start pointing fingers or calling out some of these municipalities?
Definitely high, especially if you consider the fact that we do have metros that are included there that did not attain clean audit outcomes. And why am I saying that it's high? Not only from a numbers point of view, if you then consider, for example, non-compliance, it means that we've got instances where procurement was not economical, as an example, or where there's lack of accountability towards the performance for the year in terms of service delivery elements. So it is high in quantitative and qualitative considerations here.
So let's talk about the root causes, Patricia, of these audit outcomes.
Sure. Yeah, the root causes, I mean, they're quite diverse, right? And firstly, I want to first share the Auditor General Tsakane's sentiments around her worry in relation to the poor audit outcomes, because it is a continuation. It's not something that we see now. It's been happening year on year. I mean, I've been with the Auditor General in my previous roles as well, and it was a trend that we are seeing. And after so many years that we're still finding ourselves in a position where we're still having outcomes that are not at a desired level. And this certainly calls for a change, and that speaks to the areas of root causes as to what are the systematic challenges that we need to address. And the Auditor General's report is so comprehensive in relation to identifying the root causes and the proposed steps that public sector that needs to take in relation to leadership and governance oversight functions. And firstly, it's in relation to the culture of accountability, not having competent or sufficiently competent personnel that are fulfilling various roles, and whether it's in finance, whether it's in procurement to ensure compliance, or even on the service delivery element. And the Auditor General's report does elevate some of the areas, for example, where there are long outstanding vacancies in relation to the field of water treatment management around engineers that are, still roles that are still vacant. And then also, this also calls for ethical conduct as well, within the public sector. Why we actually call it under that? Because if you're sitting with a situation where there is non-compliance year on year, but there is lack of consequence management, and it speaks to then, is individuals that are supposed to be enforcing consequence management, fulfilling their roles. And this speaks to the broader ecosystem, right? And when we talk about accountability, we're looking at the ecosystem, looking at the full value chain, because there are different role players that are supposed to be playing a defense role, right? And that's why we call it lines of defense, whether it's those who start from a transactional level where, they are actually initiating, for example, procurement processes, or those that are supposed to enforce good governance within our various municipalities. So the entire value chain as well needs to be strengthened to ensure that we can have, firstly, be able to attract the right people in the public sector, because we do have issues of vacancies or lack of skills. But what we're seeing as well, even in our profession, that we find that some are finding public sector not so attractive because of various challenges, that they've been faced with. And we even did a study to understand what are the challenges in the public sector, that impact career mobility from attraction and retention, because we do have some that go into the public sector but do not stay because of the environment they're not finding enabling for various reasons that we identified in the research study that we did in the last year. So it is quite a lot of root causes that, and all they're interrelated as well. But at the end of the day, it goes back to the leadership will and the right people that are able to do what they are actually employed to do. Thank you, Hugo.
Patricia, you've mentioned ineptitude as potentially one of the key causes to the outcomes or the failure to achieve clean audits. The one thing that you haven't talked about is graft, right? And it's almost always synonymous with a situation where municipalities continually fail to achieve clean audits, and there doesn't appear to be the political will to deal with it. How much of this is a result of graft?
Sorry, if you repeat your question?
I said, how much of the lack of clean audits is a result of graft? I mean, you've talked about ineptitude on the one side, but is there money being siphoned out? Are the municipalities losing lots of money to fraudulent activities?
Look, I mean, the AGSA report identified various things, right? So non-compliance does not automatically translate to fraud. However, there are instances where the Auditor General has raised material irregularities, and some relating to what they identified to be possible fraud as well. But if there's no active action to ensure that there's follow through, especially in relation to the material irregularities process, then it's also difficult to also conclusively say, to what extent have we had instances of fraudulent activities. However, we are losing, there is financial loss, because material irregularities, actually looks at instances where there could be financial loss. And financial loss comes in various forms, right? It could be as a result of lack of, infrastructure maintenance, as an example, where we actually lose funds because of poor, supplier management, where suppliers are paid late and we pay interest as municipalities, as an example. So financial loss comes in various forms, and hence accountability structures need to be strengthened so that there should be some form of recovery, especially where it's found to be fraudulent as well. But there are processes that are set out. However, you would have seen that, the AGSA report does also highlight the fact that we are seeing slow progress coming through in relation to material irregularities and recovery processes, in various municipalities as well, which remains a gross concern as well, especially for us as a profession, because these things have got a ripple effect, Hugo. If you observe even as a professional accountant who wants to make a difference in the public sector, and we encourage that because we exist to ensure that we can strengthen the public interest. But if you're observing, you're seeing that there is no intentional steps to ensure that there is consequence management and people are held to account. What it does is it actually exacerbates the issue of attractiveness and not having the sufficiently skilled people in the public sector. As much as we do have some, we do have people in leadership that are members of our profession as well, but we need more. We need to scale up the number of people so that we can professionalize the public sector. But the culture of accountability needs to be enhanced.
Patricia Stock, CEO of the South African Institute of Chartered Accountants, reacting to only 16% of South Africa's municipalities achieving a clean audit in the latest Auditor General report. Patricia, thanks for your time.